Welcome into Grip Lock, Foundation's weekly disc golf podcast. I'm Trevor, joined by Connor today. Hunter is not with us today, so you get another Trevor Connor episode.
I'm just thinking about last time it was just the two of us, and we had to redo the intro because you called yourself Hunter.
I almost did it again today. I had to pause, if you noticed. If you're into these episodes, then good for you. You're going to be in for a treat. If you're not, then I'm sorry. But I think you should stick around because we're going to, we don't have a ton to talk about this week. We're going to recap the Mid-America Open that went on, and then we're going to experiment with a few new segments.
Oh, I like that.
If you listen to our off-season podcasts, we do a lot more like segments that are like repeating, and then we kind of change them up each off-season to fill in the blanks when there's not a lot of disc golf going on. And this was kind of a quiet week for disc golf beyond the Silver Series that went on. So we're going to test out some segments. So maybe this will be like a little early preview for the off-season. We know a lot of people like the off-season podcast. So that's what you can look forward to. But we're going to start with the Mid-America Open. I was on vacation this weekend, so I didn't get to watch every second of it. It's also a little tougher because with Silver Series, they only go live for the last round. But I was able to do some extensive research through all the threads about it, and I also watched a good bit of the final round to get the scope. But we'll start with the FPO. Sarah Hokom taking it down at even par, followed by Kat Mertsch at +5, so a pretty comfortable margin of victory. And then Natalie Ryan and Jessica Weiss both tied for third at +7. This is Sarah Hokom's second win this year. Both have been Silver Series wins. She won the Masters Cup, if you remember, not too long ago. Here's the thing about Sarah Hokom. Looking over the stats, I click on the stats tab expecting, Sarah Hokom won. She probably just threw really well, and putting wasn't super important. Keep in mind, this field was not super strong for the FPO at all. MPO field was MPO field was a little bit better. FPO field, nobody. It was kind of a lot of players could have won, but nothing crazy. But I mean, she won by 5 against some solid players, so nothing to scoff at. But Sarah Hokom has recently got like a new putt. They were talking about it, I remember, last week on the broadcast, and she was third in strokes gained putting, along with her normally impressive, kind of expected driving statistics. So Sarah Hokom, folks,
She'll have to see if she keeps that up, because sometimes it might be kind of one of those things where you're like, I changed up my putt and I'm so much better now. And then for like one round, you just destroy and you're so good at putting, but then you just...
It's very true. And like when they said she changed her putt, I remember like watching like, let me pay attention here. And then I saw it and I was like, she did? Like, like it wasn't like that drastic. I don't remember her having like a super notable Sarah Hokom,
before.
every time, her putt was tough to watch.
Gotcha.
Very wobbly. And as
yes,
I throw some wobbly
that.
putts in my day, but her putts, man, they wobble. That's always been her struggle, but she's a player that like we've seen enough Sarah Hokom that she's won some big things, she's a world champ. But we've kind of like seen, she's been around long enough that she's not like, there are certain players on tour that like are young enough and new enough that like we can be like, they just figure out their putt and like they're in business. Like,
yeah.
And even like Katrina Allen, we've done that for years with. But like Sarah Hokom, I think we all kind of just like thought we knew Sarah Hokom, like, she's just not a good putter. And, like some people just are like that. But hey, if the putting comes into play, I mean, there are certain courses, especially with her forehand, where like Sarah Hokom is legit. So,
well, that's a good thing, is that not having a very spinny putt and then working on your putt to give it more spin, I feel like is the best change you can do in putting. Because other things can be like, I'm going to switch up my style because I'm just not super confident with this. You're just going to eventually not be confident with another style.
Yeah.
But if it's like, this is a more effective putt,
right.
I feel like that's the best way to work on your putt.
That is a good point. It's kind of like one of those rock bottom things where like, I remember like, it was kind of how the way I thought about Evelina's putt is like, you get to a point where your putt is so bad to where you might as well change it towards something that might not work for you at the beginning at all, but like it's going to like eventually blossom into something better. Yeah. And also like you can't get worse. So like, I mean, it's just kind of one of those situations, but that'll be interesting to kind of keep track of. And then, now she's got a win under her belt again this season. So there's momentum there. So Sarah Hokom, sneaky pick for Worlds in a few weeks, huh?
Maybe.
That could be interesting. Let's move into the MPO. MPO was kind of a shootout. We had Alden Harris taking it down at 26 under, followed by Gannon Burr and Chris Clemens, both at 24 under. Barella finished at 23 under. Here's the thing. Alden Harris, didn't quite go I don't believe he quite went wire to wire. It was close. He went. He had 3 solid rounds. Boom, boom, boom. Like he never wavered. Really, really great play, kind of coast to coast there. First Silver Series win of the year. He did have a win at Goat Hill, which was just an A tier this year, but had a pretty strong field. And he also won Music City Open in 2020 with a really good field. So Alden Harris actually has some sneaky good wins. I think we might be sleeping on Alden Harris as a player because he's not somebody, and he's been streaky this year, granted, but he does have like solid wins now. Mm-hmm. So we kind of like, everybody kind of agrees that like, you know, Gannon Buhr is like the golden child prospect, right? And then there's like, you know, there's quite a few other names, but like Alden Harris does not get grouped into those names ever. Yeah. But here's the thing. Alden Harris was rated 876 in 2017. That was his first PDGA season. Okay, only 5 years ago. His first full touring year was in 2021, and he only hit 1,000 rated in 2019, just a few years ago. So I think that we might like Alden Harris like is not realized potential yet. Like I think there's probably quite a bit more ceiling to him with the way his progression has gone, and I think a lot of people were not tracking with that.
Yeah,
I certainly wasn't. Like I've seen his vlogs on YouTube and they're funny.
I mean, when we played that game last week,
yeah, you couldn't even name him.
I couldn't even think of a single
like hint
characteristic about him.
Yeah, so I think that hopefully this gets him some more attention and he has some bigger finishes at higher level events this year. But like really solid win, and he held off some very good players. We'll kind of get into the way it all wrapped up because the final round of this event was kind of interesting. Mostly we're going to kind of get into it, but mostly having to do with the amount of time that it took. But basically the situation was that Chris Clemens and Anthony Barella were both in the clubhouse well ahead of that group, both at 24 under, so set a pretty intense pace. Alden Harris and Gannon Buhr are kind of chasing that. They eventually get to 18, and on hole 18, Gannon's at 24 under and Alden is at 25 under. And hole 18 is a fantastic hole. Harmony Bends is a really cool course. I actually was reading online that like apparently one of the main things stopping Harmony Bends from being like a pro tour stop and it's not just a Silver Series is apparently it floods really bad.
Oh, okay.
People were saying that like one bad rain there and like it's unplayable. It's like underwater. Dang. So that's kind of a bummer because it is. I mean,
that's hard to fix too.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's nothing really to do about it unless like you pick a better time of the year, but still. But hole 18 at this course was like incredible. You had basically a downhill drive into a landing zone with like OB short and long. And then you're going over like there's like a winding, really deep, really wide creek that goes through the rest of the hole. And so your next shot goes to a landing zone on the right with a bunch of trees you have to miss. And then you could finally go on to the last island. So there was decisions to be made, and there's also a lot of individual tough shots to throw, which makes for a ton of separation, which is what you're looking for in a hole 18. Because now you've got a one-stroke tournament, and then you've even got two guys at 24 under in the clubhouse, so there's a lot of people in it.
Yeah.
And it feels like the event feels like it's still up for grabs at that point, which I really love about. Like, I think that's a good hole 18. Like, we've seen too many this year that like, are not that exciting. But off the tee, I saw some people claiming that Gannon, like, apparently they were saying, like, they think he could have gotten the eagle. I looked at the course stats, and only one person eagled that hole the entire event, and it was a throw-in of at least 20 meters. So I'm guessing they threw it in from the second island. I don't know if there's, like, a way to actually get to the last island from the first one. It seemed pretty improbable. But in any case, Gannon Buhr's drive got knocked down short, like barely inbounds. And so he was like automatically had to go to the second island. Mm-hmm. He then laid up to the third and had a birdie putt. But Alden played it perfectly. Laced his drive, perfect second shot, and then literally jump putt up over the creek, tap in birdie. So he really, finished out strong because he took a double bogey a few holes before that put him back in the mix. But yeah, I think it was just like, it was a great example of a great hole 18. So my question is, first of all, what do you think about hole 18s in general and like how they should play out? And then what is like your favorite hole 18? that you've ever played?
Oh, that I've ever played. So hole 18s are tough for me because I think about what I think is the most dramatic course of all time, and that's Winthrop Gold at USDGC, because it provides the most dramatic finishes in our sport, I think. And the drama ties in there with hole 17.
It's true.
Hole 18 is tough. The green is exciting, so it still things can happen, but it's almost like you almost know a lot of times you kind of have a good prediction after hole 17 of who's about to win. And
I think it's because 17 is so drastic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's like somebody takes such a big number on 17. Like you rarely see 18 come down to. At least it doesn't feel like it. Like I feel like I see a lot of laying up on 18, but I think it's because you end up in a situation where you have two players tied.
Yeah.
So like last year, Paul gets 18, and a par gets him into the playoffs. So like he was kind of like in between, and so he had a putt for the win, but he could have played it more aggressive probably if he knew he needed the birdie.
Yeah.
I feel like you don't often see where like somebody like two players get to 18 and one of them's just back one, and then so like you kind of force people to try and go for birdies.
Yeah.
But I do agree 17 is definitely the separator.
I think I think that I think it does make for a really good course though whenever 18. The way I feel about 18 is I don't think 18 should be like it's going to destroy you hole, but I also don't think that it should be like I feel like 18 should be you get up there, two of you are tied. You're tied with one other person. And if you've got the box, you're like, if I don't birdie it, he's going to birdie it. But if I throw it and I park it, or, if it's par 4, I throw it and I'm in the perfect position, you put pressure on the other guy that's tied with you too. If I've got a match, know? And like, so I feel like 18 needs to be gettable. I don't like 18 just being a par fest. Like I want it to be a very gettable hole. Yeah. That's why like I think about one specific hole I think is now this is not necessarily a pro tour, just one that I like. It's at a course in Charlotte, and it's not Nevin. It might be R.L. Smith. I'm not sure. It's a course that I'm not even sure is there anymore. But it's one of the older courses in Charlotte. There's a lot of old courses, but it's one of those ones. I know Philo played there for some tournament. I don't remember what it was. Anyway, the very last hole is about 350, I think. And it's over this valley. And it's very steep going up to the basket, but it's very tall, like spongy grass. Yeah. So there's not rollaways aren't huge there. So it's like it's pretty easy to park it. But you've got a little bit of a narrow line to the basket of trees. Probably a 40 to 50 foot wide fairway through the trees. And then it's just a dead straight shot. And to me, that was a hole 18. And I thought it was so much fun because you look at it and you're like, it's basically like a bigger version of hole 1 at East. Okay. You look at it and you're just like, all right, well, easy hole. Like all I've got to do is throw it. I can see the baskets eye level with me, but you've got this huge valley in between you and the hole with like a little creek down there, and then still a line, like gap.
Hole 8 at East.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, it is kind of like that. And so, it's very gettable. But I think it's really fun because you just as easily as you can park it, you can veer off a little bit and get kicked down and take a big number. You can go, so it's a very much like you can park it, get a birdie, and be like that was easy, or you can be playing for your bogey because you're just down in this creek out in the woods, and so I feel like that makes like a good 18 because you can be going into the hole tied and then still put pressure on to like I have to throw a good shot here. Yeah, I like so something like that where I think numbers could be taken and birdies could be made.
Yeah, I think there needs to be separation, and I like a hole where there has to be 2 good shots thrown. I do like the par 4s and 5s because I like that you can't just get away with throwing 1 good shot. You've got to throw multiple in the last hole.
That also makes more sense monetarily because once one person parks it and the other doesn't, they might click off.
It's true. But in any case, this was a great one. So it ended up where Burt wasn't able to make birdie. Alden closed it out. Great win for him. the main storyline that really ended up coming out of this event, and this was just this has been talked about a lot this year, a lot last year, and it's really come full circle now with what happened with Nico, is pace of play. Basically, you had I've got some, we'll start with, it's safe to say players and fans were outraged about this, but we'll start with some tweets from Drew Gibson, because that'll kind of, Drew is one of the players who's not really afraid to voice himself. So first he had,
I love listening to,
"Hey Gannon,
Drew
please
Gibson
hurry up
tweets.
a little." And then you have, he said we should normalize a finished gentleman with a stopwatch at all events. I think it's fair response to 2-minute up shots. He said we finished, signed autographs, ate dinner, and we were back to our place we were staying at before our lead card finished. We were second card, over an hour behind, ? So that last card was taking forever. I mean, they were so far behind. And there's just a number of issues here. For starters, and I know like a lot of it was Gannon, but I'm sure the card as a whole probably was not playing the fastest. But Gannon was definitely a big part of it, and I watched some of it and saw. And there's a lot of issues at hand here. Number one issue is basically the hypocrisy, essentially, because Nikola Castro, now granted, what happened to Nico ultimately was obviously due to how he reacted to the situation.
For sure.
We're not like that's very clear. But Nico was called on time because he's known as a repeat offender. So who's also known as a repeat offender, but even more so, Gannon Buhr. So if Gannon Buhr isn't also going to be treated that way, because it's not really realistic to have volunteers stop with stopwatches on every hole. And also it makes like having a shot clock like that really takes away from the sport, in my opinion. It's a struggle because disc golf is always going to be somewhat of a gentleman's game. You have to, there's just a lot of unspoken rules, and there has to be just a respect amongst card mates to follow the rules. However, when there is somebody who's a repeat offender, and when you know for a fact that the card is way behind pace, then there needs to be enforcement. That's what I'm definitely for that. Okay, now there's a course marshal out there who can go to that group and say, "Hey guys, you guys start picking it up." And then if they don't start picking it up, hey guys, guess what? Now you haven't picked it up. I'm going to be out here timing you. That. I think there's just a progression like that.
I think that's
because that can happen within 2 holes. First hole, you need to pick it up. Second hole, didn't pick it up. Okay, I'm going to start timing you because, Gannon Buhr was taking. I mean, it just comes down to it. Almost every shot, he's violating the PDGA rules. I mean, there were shots people were timing them. People were apparently sending text messages to Brian Earhart, who was there, timing the players. Because they were just well in excess of the amount of time they have. Reddit was going nuts about it. Jeremy Colling was another player who spoke out about it. He actually, I believe this was a Facebook post, but he basically said, this is his idea for how they should fix things. He said, "In my opinion, the Disc Golf Pro Tour Silver Series and Majors should have an altered set of rules that translates better to the level of play on tour," which we've said a lot of times in this podcast. I have a suggestion regarding the potential change to the 30-second rule. A, each player is permitted 45 seconds to throw. The same rules are applied as when that time begins. B, each player is permitted 2 extensions per round, which they must announce themselves before the 45 seconds is up, at which point they are getting an extra 30 to 45 seconds to perform their throw. C,
Interesting.
if any player goes over their allotted 45 seconds without announcing an extension, a time violation can then be called and must be seconded, at which point the player receives automatic 1-stroke penalty. He said, "We are professionals. We need to hold ourselves more accountable. I realize in the end it still comes down to players officiating one another. I'm also aware of the uncomfortable position we're in when we should be calling the rules on our buddies when they break the rules. I'm not even going to pretend like I'm not guilty of letting this rule slide. Heck, usually several times around. I will, however, say something when a player is egregiously taking advantage of any other rule. There is an automatic stroke attached to the prospect of deliberately neglecting the rules. I believe it may aid some players who are developing a more sound routine." I think this makes sense to me.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
I hate that there has to be this kind of structure around the thing that to me is so I'm a fast player, and there are a lot of people out there that are fast players, but I understand why some players take their time more, and when Gannon Buhr is lining up an upshot that's going to decide his tournament essentially. Like I get it, but if it gets so bad, because my second issue I was going to bring up was that group ahead of them got into the clubhouse so much ahead of them. Like it should be the group ahead of them should be finishing up hole 18, and then they should be getting to the next group should be getting to hole 18 like pretty soon, because now the broadcast, you've got a lot of golf where it is one group, so you are waiting so much and they can't fill it with the chase card, so like that becomes a problem for the broadcast. And people are now going after live disc golf. Like we try so hard on this podcast and in general to like support live disc golf, but when you have really slow pace of play like that and they can't fill it with anything, because like I don't care if they're playing slow, but I'm just seeing other shots. But when you can't fill it with anything, it's just dead space. That really hurts the broadcast. I think that what Big Germ was saying, it does make some sense. The rules would be tricky. It just goes back to the same thing though, where it's like calling your card mates on rules is never going to be really an effective way to marshal the sport, because some people just aren't going to want to do it. So I think that there just needs to be a set amount of marshals on the course. And I think they need to be there for a couple reasons. I think they need to be able to be called over to make a decision. I think they need to be called over in case of time, like keeping track of that thing. I think it's just it surprises me that it isn't already in place.
It's just hard because like the rules are so mushy that like even just the fact that it's when they have they have addressed their lie.
When they've had ample time to address it or something like that. Yeah, there's a lot of ambiguous words.
And so like
it's just golf rules.
How do you can argue all that? Like I hadn't addressed my lie yet. Like, and so I think that one thing that is helping with this I think that what's going to help with this is that we are starting to see more repercussions for it.
Yeah.
Because that's like with everything, is that like the moment that you start actually having consequences for these smaller rules being broken, the more that people will take rules seriously. For sure. Because like if Gannon Burr is called for it one time, he's a nice guy. He's not going to be like, he's not going to fight it. He's going to be like, oh, I need to probably learn how to. We're not called for it. He's been called for it. Yeah. But like, I don't know. I honestly think that I don't think it's realistic, but the whole timing thing, like where there's like a clock or something, because sometimes you just don't realize you're taking long.
Yeah. Well, here's the deeper issue is that the players who I've noticed that are struggling with this, the Nikos and the Gannon, it is a mental battle they're fighting. Mm-hmm. It is not deliberate. It's clearly obvious.
And that clock will not help.
They have, ticks in their routine, like picking up the chalk bag. Like there's things that are going on to where they're just processing things and time is not working the same way in their brain. So that's where it gets really hard, is because like those players are basically just, if time becomes more of a push, those players are going to have to work harder than a lot of other players to develop a routine that gets them making decisions quicker. I like what Colin was saying about the extensions. Like, I hate having that much logistics in a disc golf round. Like, let me declare a time extension. But like, the way a disc golf round should work in a perfect world is that players get to their throw normally and get their lie, they throw pretty quickly, because like a lot of times you have time to decide, because you're walking to your throw, you're walking to the next tee, other people are throwing before you, like you have time. So in a perfect world, most of your throws during a round should happen really quick, and then there should be some times where it takes a bit longer, or you second guess yourself picking, and then that should be fine because it should balance itself out. So like that is how golf is meant to happen, and it stinks that like there are players who are too slow, and this happens in the PGA Tour. Like there are players who
I was going to ask what do they do there?
There are players that are notoriously slow on the PGA Tour, but there are also marshals on the course that will speed them up if they have to. Okay. So that's what stinks about it, is because like, let's say I'm a player who plays literally every single shot in 5 to 10 seconds the whole round, and then the one time I need like a little, like literally a minute instead of 45 seconds to like figure out my shot. I can't have it, or like like with the extension thing, like I already used my 2 extensions. Like that's where it stinks, because like. But I mean, what happened this weekend? It was pretty bad. People were very upset about it, and like it just wasn't a good look overall.
It is the thing it comes down to is like I think it's not just a pace of play is huge for it. That is a big deal. But it is an advantage, because every shot you walk up to is a puzzle. and you are discovering the best way to solve it, because if you're scrambling and you've got 30 seconds, you're addressing your lie, and you might just be really good at addressing everything to where in 30 seconds you can figure out, oh, there's a hole up in the trees. If I get this, oh no, if I move this way, okay, well, this log is in my way, so if I move that, like, there are ways to, it's kind of like professional Rubik's Cube solvers.
Yeah.
They uncover the Rubik's Cube while it's all mixed up, and they have, a minute, I think, to look at the Rubik's Cube, touch it, and look at it. Or maybe 30 seconds it's that they have to like basically address their lie as a Rubik's Cube and look at. I'm not a huge Rubik's Cube person, so that I don't.
No, I like this analogy.
But they look at it and then they put it down, and they only have that much time. Then they start and they solve it.
Right.
And then it's the same thing. If one guy, has 30 seconds to look at his Rubik's Cube, and the other guy has 2 minutes. The 2 minutes helps because you can think through how to solve it better.
Yeah.
And it's the same way in disc golf. If you have more time to think about what you're gonna throw, and you're not a mental case, it's gonna help you because you can actually discover different lines and stuff. So it is an advantage.
I think it's just it's difficult for some people to grasp, and even myself, because essentially what we're describing with this universal time limit that's enforced on every shot is, like you're saying, is essentially like a new part of disc golf, which is now like speed lie assessing.
Yeah.
It's no longer like just can you throw shots well? Now it's can you find lines in a quick amount of time so you get your throw off in time. And that is that's a very weird line for the sport of golf. Like it's very atypical for golf because it's always been a sport that governs itself and like just is kind of loosey-goosey with rules like that because people are just expected to follow them because it's just part of the respect of the game. It's part of the etiquette. Like whenever you have a sport like golf that's so heavy in etiquette, there's always going to be stuff that is weird. Because like, for instance, like if you're golfing with your buddy and you step in his line for a putt, now I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty sure that's not a actual rule violation. However, it is etiquette. You don't do that because you could mess up his lie.
Gotcha.
Now, if that's not a rule, could somebody purposely step in somebody's line on the tour? Or let's just keep it in the scope of you with your buddy. And you and your buddy, you're not going to think he just broke a rule, but he's abusing something that's part of etiquette. So this is kind of like where the time falls right now, because even though there is a rule, it's kind of always been treated as like an etiquette situation. So that's just the difficult thing with golf, and it's hard, and it'll evolve in whatever way the PDGA and the Pro Tour decides to make it. I'll be curious to see what they do about it, but I prefer keeping it self-governed, keeping it the way it is, and then calling officials over if necessary.
If there's multiple problems.
Right. If there's problems,
I think
then
that
we
makes
start
the most sense.
Like we don't need, because like not everybody needs to have a clock held up by a board over their head to throw their shot.
Well, because the more like technical ways that they use to solve the problem, the more technicalities can get involved, and the more imagine a player just misses getting his throw off by 1 second and then loses like worlds because of it. Like how stupid would we feel as a sport? Even something where like a player is try like they're at their lie, they're about to throw, but they like slip and fall and hurt themselves. Yeah. And they've got 5 seconds left to throw where they're getting a violation.
It just like it sounds so gimmicky to me imagining a player like rushing to get their throw off. Like I would
my gosh.
Yeah, like that to me is so stupid.
It was out of my hand before the buzzer went off.
Yeah, and then like oh, you started the clock? No, I didn't really address my lie yet. Like no, like restart the clock. Like now that I'm thinking about it, like we cannot do that.
True. Whenever you talk about it like that, it's more bizarre.
It gets sketchy.
I'm interested to hear in comments what opinions are about that, because like I don't even have a firm opinion on it because there's so many. There's devil's advocate for like every single solution.
You know what they need to do is so in minor league baseball, like further down the leagues, what they'll do a lot of times is test rules that they are thinking about using for Major League Baseball, like bigger bases, pitching like clocks where you have to throw in a certain amount of time. And a lot of the stuff does eventually get implemented. It's almost like Silver Series events. They should start using for that kind of stuff.
That's a good idea.
Like, oh, should we mess around with a bigger circle for this event? Should we mess around with this? Now, Silver Series events probably mean too much at this point, but there could be maybe in the future if there's events that are a little bit lower down. But I think that could be like, I think the best way to experiment with rules is to actually use them in events. So anyways, that's that.
We should have one major every.
It's just the experimental major.
It couldn't be a major. No, but we should have one term. It's almost it'll take the place of what's the useless one.
The match play.
Yeah,
The
to
useless
take
one.
place of that, and it can be like the what we would call it, like what's a way to progressive rules tournament or something like
Yeah.
that, where it's like
What rules would you implement?
Well, you could bigger circle, smaller baskets.
I would say I would definitely do smaller baskets.
Do a
and
time,
bigger circle.
do a clock on each throw.
Shirts, clock shirts on everybody.
Clock shirts. And stuff like that. I think would be.
That would be fascinating. Maybe we could run it because it wouldn't be PDGA sanctioned.
Required pants.
We'll run the event because it won't be PDGA sanctioned. So we just need to get a hold of some marksman baskets. We're good to go.
We got one in here.
Yeah. So moving on from America, important to mention that the Finnish Nationals also went on this past weekend, and
Seppo win.
No, Nicholas Antila won the MPO, and Evelina Salonen won the FPO. So pretty expected wins over there. Also in our European news, Kristen Tatar posted that she is feeling better. The elbow is healing up.
Nice.
She just competed, I believe it was at Estonian Nationals, and it felt pretty good. So she's kind of planning on getting back to the U.S. soon to finish her season here, which is great news because it really has been a bummer not having her over here. Just the FPO field has certainly been lacking in general. But yeah, good news for Kristen Tatar. All right, so we're gonna hop into a kind of a new segment here. This is gonna be kind of just like a test thing. We're gonna call this Disc Golf Help Center. I basically went on Reddit and you get a lot of people asking questions on Reddit.
Okay.
And just looking for answers, and a lot of people giving good answers, sometimes not good answers. But I found one that kind of interested me because it's relevant to me. So this person was asking, how long or how many tournaments did you play before nerves were less of a factor than your actual performance? And this is like that hit home with me because for really all of my disc golf career, I've always felt like nerves had all of the effect on my performance in a disc golf tournament, not actually how I played. Because anytime that I nerves for me had always been so severe when I was playing tournaments that it could take over my whole body. Like it didn't matter how much I had practiced, how good I was. If I was very nervous, I was not making any putts. I was not hitting any lines. And I've had some very bad experiences with it. I've just now. I haven't played the last tournament I played that was competitive. It was a flex start, so it wasn't that competitive, but I played pretty well. I think I took like second or third at it. And that one was pretty casual, but I wouldn't know what it would feel like for me if I went to the last time I played a competitive tournament. It did not work out. I was very nervous. My thing is I've slowly gotten better with this because I play on camera a lot, and I play in front of, we do Foundation versus the Nation and that kind of thing. I'm playing in front of a lot of people. When we do the Bogey Bro battles, I'm playing with a lot of pressure, like monthly matches. So I've gotten so much practice under pressure. But honestly, what I think it comes down to for me is I have, and this is kind of silly to say, but I have literally I've embarrassed myself so much on a disc golf course, and I've had those awful tournaments happen to me so many times.
And you've had it broadcasted in front of tens of thousands of people.
Right. So that, it just doesn't affect me as much anymore. So I've kind of become numb to it. I've played enough in those situations where nowadays, I can go to our weekly match, which is very competitive, and there is certainly pressure, and I can putt fine, and I can throw fine, and so I've literally now playing disc golf for nearly a decade. I have started to settle in, but I really struggled throughout college, and when I was in high school, still playing events. Nerves have always been difficult for me, and I found this very relatable post. All I can say we'll hear from you, but what I can say is for me, as far as what you can do to help the nerves, it's very difficult to say, but you have to just stop caring so much. You have to have positive visualization, and you have to stop having those negative thoughts of I'm gonna miss this putt. Because for me, my biggest thing was, I'd have a 15-footer and I would already be missing it before I even stepped up to the putt.
Yep.
And what you have to realize,
I'm never.
What you have
this.
to realize is, if what you're scared of is missing the putt, first of all, what whoop-de-doo, just a missed putt. And second of all, if you've already missed it in your head, then you should because my thing is I would be so scared of missing that I would putt super conservatively, and that's why I would miss.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I'm afraid I'm going to miss anyways, and I already missed it in my head, well, why not putt more confidently? And if you miss, well, it's the same result anyway. So for me, it's always been just trying to you have to just pump yourself up with confidence. That's what it comes down to. The people that are the best at disc golf and at sports in general are the ones who have mastered self-confidence. And sometimes it's just because they're arrogant people, but a lot of times just people, a lot of times they're just people who they are very confident in their own abilities, and they're able to give themselves confidence. Whereas in my disc golf career, it was always me getting down on myself, being I'm not good enough. And so I went about this the wrong way, because now where I've gotten to is just the reason I've gotten over nerves a lot is because A, lot of experience, and B, I just don't care anymore. What I do in disc golf for a living involves entertainment, not performance really. But what I would say is if you're really trying to get on a better path, it's all positive thoughts and self-confidence. What has your experience been?
I think that in a very similar way, I think that I've learned a lot from Robbie C. Thinking about this, he's put stuff into perspective for me just personally on my personal time watching his videos. But something that he does is, I think that something that's important, which I'm not ever going to be the science guy, but we can look into the science of why you play worse when you're nervous. Because there's a reason. You're not just an idiot. You're not dumb. Whenever you are nervous, your body is
physical reaction.
Your body is literally in fight or flight mode. Your body is reacting to something. And so what happens is your muscles tense up more because you're ready to fight. So your muscles are tense because you're nervous. And your body does a lot of crazy stuff. I realized that so I'm a musician, and I realized a couple years ago, every time before I went up on stage, I had to poop.
Yeah.
And I someone ended up telling me, yeah, that's a natural body reaction. Whenever you get nervous, sometimes you feel like you have to go to the bathroom because your body quite literally shedding weight before it runs. And so that your body is it's a very real thing that nerves does. But one of the main things it does for me is it makes my body tense up. So whenever I'm doing my X-up, whenever I'm doing my pull through, I'm a lot more robotic. And so it's a lot less smooth. So my timing gets off because my ligaments just aren't moving.
Loose, yeah.
And same thing with putting. I just get more I end up pulling it because my timing's all messed up. So what I like to do, if I notice myself getting a little bit more nervous for a drive, let's say.
Yeah.
What I do is I literally get to the back of the tee pad and I jump. I jump and I move my arms to get my body loosened up.
That's a great tip.
And get on your toes a little bit, stop being so flat-footed. What Robbie C does, literally, we watched him do this. You might have seen it at the Creators Cup if you guys watched that final round. He dances. Yeah. Literally walks up to a putt. And if he told me that if he's in his head about something, I should have made this decision about this putt. I should have made this decision about this putt. He said, if you're thinking about what you should have done or the mistakes you're going to make, you're not going to make it. And so he literally was on his lie, was about to putt, stepped back, literally did a little dance like this, little shoulders, little white man dance, and then walked back up to the putt and sunk the putt. And it's just whatever it takes to get your body loose. I think for me, something I'm going to try probably today at the weekly, not out loud, but I'm not really the guy that's going to, with a group of friends, maybe I would dance, but it'd be more as a joke, not actually to help me. But for a putt, I think what I might start to do is to sing a song in my head, maybe even hum it out loud, because that will get me in the most casual state. If I'm just singing All American Rejects in my head.
Probably going to call you on a courtesy violation.
That's fine. I'm not going to walk up and just be like, I can see your halo. I'm going to be humming it. But something like that I think is good. Or even think about what causes you to, what is your mistake whenever you're nervous? For me, my mistake with putting is I try to putt it too hard and I end up just putting it super nose down. Yeah. And so I just miss super low every time. I put everything behind it, but it only goes it gets halfway to the basket. And it's very frustrating. And that kind of putt makes me the most frustrated. It doesn't only hurt that putt, but it hurts my next one because I'm so frustrated about the result. And so I've noticed the best thing for me is the slower I putt and the more nose up I put it, the further my putt's going to go and the straighter my putt's going to go. And that's for me, personally, I realize that's what helps me. So whenever I walk up to nervous putts, I did this whenever we played at New London, I was saying out loud, slow and nose up, Slow and nose up, Connor. Slow and nose up. And so all I think about whenever I pull my putt down is go up slow and nose up. And it made me make a lot more putts that I normally would miss. And so I think just find something that takes your mind off of competition, maybe that drives you, but if you're having nervous problems like this, it probably doesn't. Find something that takes your mind off of the competition and the stakes that are in play and just takes you to what is it that you need to be successful at this.
Yeah.
And it might be slow nose up. It might be pull through my chest more.
Yeah. It's good to have like a thought like that like gets rid of your common miss. One other thing I'll add is actually something that I've heard other pro athletes say, but Ezra Aderhold just said it to me when I interviewed him a few months ago. And I asked him about nerves and pressure. And he said that he enjoys the pressure. Mm-hmm. And I've heard people say that before, but I was like, well, yeah, okay, that's great. You're just built different. That's awesome. But then he added, he's like, he loves the pressure because you don't really ever get to feel that feeling other than in those moments. And that made sense to me. I was kind of like, you know what? You go through your daily day, you know, when we're just casual disc golfers who want to play tournaments, most of us do not have pressure-filled lives. And you might have some like job pressure, but sports pressure, like playing at a disc golf event, is a great feeling. Like it's a good pressure. Like that is something you don't really get a lot in, like especially in my age. Like I don't really get to compete in sports a lot. So like feeling that pressure, that's something that I don't get a lot. And so I've started to kind of teach my brain to say when I feel that pressure, like, oh, this is fun. Like I'm having fun. Like this is, you know, something I don't really get to feel very often. So like I'm going to enjoy the pressure and enjoy the moment instead of getting terrified and be like, oh my gosh,
a very good point.
My body is locking up. Think, ooh, I feel a little shaky right now. Like, let me step off this. Let me shake it out. But like, this is a fun moment. Like I'm feeling this pressure. So that's something that I have found to help. But
also a cool thing to add to that, an interesting thing about something like a sport or something like disc golf more specifically. And I'm not sure if this makes any sense, but in all the other pressures in your life, because everybody feels pressure in their life, but all your other pressures, whether it's financial pressures, family pressures, friends, like school pressures, work, like you feel those pressures in your life, and it's not an immediate, I fix it now, or I end it now, or I fail now, and the pressure's over. Because even after you fail, sometimes the pressure's over because you don't have to deal with the situation anymore. But it's more like an elongated, this is my life. This is going to be over this next year or this next month or until my next paycheck, like stuff like that. But with disc golf, you feel that pressure, and sometimes it can be almost overwhelming. But the cool thing about it is that no matter what, as soon as you're done with that throw,
it's over.
Like it's over. You've accomplished that pressure. Whether you threw a good one or a bad one, you know what? It's done. You don't have to throw that throw again. Unless you're gonna break the rules.
It's true.
And so now you just get to focus. So it does make it more of a fun situation because it's such like at the end of the day, you might just have a bad round, and that is the absolute worst consequence of disc golf.
Right. And I think that's the big thing is like the consequences for disc golf pressure versus the other ones you mentioned, non-existent.
And you know what? There's almost more pressure if you have a good round because then you have to do better next time.
It's true.
If you have a bad
round, set that bar low.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right. Disc Golf Help Center. Let us know if you like segments like that.
That is a very fun segment. I loved it, Trevor.
Like I said, kind of just a test for maybe some off-season stuff.
I felt like I was in therapy just then.
We're now going to go to a segment that you're used to. Some call it the fan favorite. It's Trevor's Trivia.
Connor's Trivia. I'm just kidding.
This comes from another thread that I found on Reddit that I thought was really fun, where basically this guy found a bunch of disc golfers who have ages that are kind of difficult to guess, and then researched what the correct ages are. So we're gonna just play a little game of how old are they.
Okay,
that's all it is.
That's fun.
So I'm gonna give you.
I'm not really super good at this historically.
Well, let's give you some buffer room. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's give you 15. That's too easy. Let's give you 10. Let's give you 10 as your buffer.
10 years.
10 years. I'm just going to jump around the board because they had them in order. All right. We'll start off with one that's a little bit easier. We'll start with Paul Macbeth.
32.
Bingo. Right on the dot.
Oh, nice.
Right on the dot.
I feel like I've looked that up recently.
All right. Next. Jeremy Colling.
28. Is that bad? Oh, is he like mid-30s?
28?
Is he? Oh, you're right. He's definitely not 28. I think of young Jeremy Colling every time I think of him.
37.
37. I was
You
off
now
by
have-
10 years.
No, not 10.
Well, I know I meant generally 10 years. I just lost.
You got 1 year left.
So just to be clear, I haven't thought about Jeremy Colling in a long time.
What?
And whenever I think about him, I literally think
I could
about
understand, like,
prodigy Jeremy
34.
Colling. I'm sorry.
28.
You're right. I'm an idiot.
Gracious.
I'm just going to cut this out. I edit the podcast. I'm just kidding.
All right. Well, we're just gonna keep going and see how much off you are, anyways. Even if
Dang,
you
that
lose.
sucks. I was so
Next,
good
you
there,
have,
Paul Beth. I told you I wasn't good at this.
Paul Ulibarri.
Okay. See, I feel like he's somebody where I think he's way older than he actually is. I think that he is. Well, he's probably right there with Jeremy Colling. I'm gonna say 38.
38.
Is he not 38?
He's 33.
What? See, why is that ridiculous? How is it ridiculous to think
Because
that he
38
is
is old.
Jeremy Colling is 37? You just said.
Yeah, but Jerem is like he's like a late bloomer. Like you gotta remember, like Paul Ulibarri's been touring since he was like 16.
Look at Paul Ulibarri's face and tell me he's not 38 years old. He's lying. His birth certificate is a lie.
He's been touring since he was really young.
Yeah, okay, well,
Him
he
and
is
Paul
a time
cut his
machine.
teeth at the same time.
I don't think that is a ridiculous guess. Whenever I learned that Jeremy Colling,
I'm just excited to see what you guess for all
I
these
was
now.
very surprised that Jeremy
All
Colling
right.
was 37.
Next-
That is, am I the only one there that thinks
I
that
would
Jeremy Colling
I
is
would have
younger than
guessed.
37?
I would have guessed like 35 or 34.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I'm not going to say
just
28
looks
wasn't
old.
an idiot
He just
number.
looks old.
I am a dummy.
All right, next. Well, it's mostly like Paul is 32 and like Jerem being 4
For some
years
reason, I
younger
thought he
is-
was younger than Paul. I thought for sure he was
All right,
younger
next
than
we
Paul.
have Nate Doss.
See, that's a crapshoot. Absolute
He's
crapshoot.
tough. He's tough.
See, I feel like I'm just going to go safe and just say 35.
He's 37.
Okay. I was going to say 38.
Yeah, he
again,
kind of
but
retired early.
35 makes sense to me, so 37 could.
Let's do Ken Climo next.
Ken Climo, you go crazy and you're like, he's 72 years old, but then like he's not young. He's in his 50s.
Well, think about the guys that he played with.
I know he's in his 50s. Is he in his late 50s? Or I see my instinct tells me Ken Climo's in his late 50s, which I'm going to ignore.
Okay.
But I'm not going to go super early 50s. So I'm going to go right in the middle at 55, but then I'm going to go one down from there at 54.
You got it.
Seriously?
Yeah. That was amazing. I was on a roller coaster ride right there. I was like, oh, he's getting closer. Oh, he's getting closer. That was great.
That's really
All
funny.
right. Next we've got
My brain is spaghetti now after that.
next we have Matty O. This is a really tough one.
Ooh, that is tough.
I wouldn't have a clue what to guess him at. Well, I would have a little bit of a clue.
Oh my gosh. I'm thinking about his face and there's no telling. I'm saying
You got to think beyond the face.
I'm thinking beyond the face. I'm thinking the
How about-
bandana.
That's a podcast.
I'm thinking about the
name.
bandana.
Beyond the face.
How old would you be to where you would wear a bandana?
That's a good question.
I think his body tells me 32. His bandana tells me 38.
Okay.
So I'm going to go 36.
He's 35.
Oh, dang it.
Wow. I thought your logic was going to lead you to the right number again.
I was going to just split the difference and say 35, but I was like, no, it's going to be something more obscure,
Oh,
like
that's-
36.
That's electric. All right. Next we have Ricky Wysocki.
Ricky, he's younger. He started competing around the same time as Paul. Paul is 32. I'm going to say Ricky's 1 year younger at 31.
29.
Not stupid.
Not stupid. So far, only 2 stupid guesses so far.
Let's just forget. I don't think Paul Ulibarri is a stupid guess.
Yeah, it is. 38.
Jeremy Colling's 37.
All right.
Am I breaking the
next-
mic right now? Are
next-
you hearing that?
No.
All right, cool.
Next we
Might
have
be-
next
might
we
be
have
my
Avery
ears.
Jenkins.
Avery Jenkins. Okay.
I've only got 3 more.
This could be an embarrassing one, too. Because I think about Avery Jenkins just being a little bit of an older guy. Not like old, but he's
Yeah.
in his 40s. I'm going to say he might not be in his 40s, though. He's not Jeremy. He's got to be older than Jeremy Colling. So I'm going to say he's right at his 40s. But then, he's nowhere close to Climo.
Glenn Climo.
I'm going 43 years old.
He's 44.
Dang.
You've done pretty well, except for
Whenever I go
off
off of pure guess logic and not just like what I feel, it's better.
It's better. All right, 2 more. Next we have Nikola Castro.
He is the same. He's like the same age as Paul. Maybe a year younger. 31.
He's 33. Year older.
Oh, I was gonna go. Dang it.
Last
I'm
one,
all around it though. My logic.
You're dialing in right now. Last one, Greg Barsby.
Greg Barsby.
Another mystery, you know.
I feel like he could. I mean, he could be 48, but like he's not. I don't think it could be younger, but he is.
Well, like here, just pick what he looks like and what he dresses like, and then go to the middle, maybe.
So like what I've been doing.
Yeah, I just like it when you do that.
That is funny. So, sunglasses. He's got the pit vipers.
Yeah,
that's like that's either like ironic 20-year-old or 40-ish-year-old, and he's not an ironic 20-year-old. I can tell you that for free. He also smokes cigarettes, and so I feel like that's an age teller as well, just because of when the popularity of that is. And I'm gonna have to go with. I think that he could See, I was gonna say upper 40s, but that is just embarrassingly bad. He's not in his upper 40s. He could be the same age as Avery Jenkins, though. He's not 50. He's not. But he could sneaky be 35. He is 44 years old.
He's 35. He could sneaky be 35. 44. I love that because Greg Barsby like always gets tossed in as an old guy, and then you like realize he's not that old. So I knew he'd be a tough one. Well, that was entertaining.
Yeah. That was entertaining. 2
more things to mention. Wrap this podcast up.
His hair makes him look older.
It does.
Take away that hair.
2 more things to mention.
He's a spry 35.
To wrap this podcast up. First things first. No news on Nikola Castro. What the heck is the PDGA waiting for?
They're scared.
Yeah, I think they're scared. I don't know what's going on with that situation, but the PDGA needs to get a grip and figure out what they're going to do.
It's been a while at this point.
It's been quite a while, and they made an initial statement, but like at least like tell us where they're at in the process. Like give us something to go off of, because like at this point, I don't think he's been added to the suspended players list yet. So that's that situation. And then I had one more like tiny little segment just to end it off, just a fun little one. This one is called Disc Golf Questions That Aren't Really That Important.
Love that.
And the question for today is, what is the best color for a disc golf basket?
Ooh, not green. I can tell you that for free. Prodigy, that green. Is silly.
I
have my answer.
It's tough because I think my favorite color and my like actual answer are kind of the same. I think yellow is good, but I think light blue is definitely my favorite.
Royal blue.
Why royal blue?
Well, okay, I'm just thinking about disc golf baskets I've seen, and I've never seen a light blue, but I've seen a royal blue.
Light blue is pretty cool.
Okay, well, blue. I think blue is the least natural.
Yeah. I think it's least natural and it's cool.
But it still looks nice.
Yeah.
Because like if you have the super crazy color,
I will say that like a royal blue looks more like professional than like the light blue. The light blue is like fun for a park, but it does look a little like cheesy. So
I think if you're looking through the woods,
you're
trying
going to
see a basket, you're going to see blue.
No matter what time of the year. Because like yellow, there are times of the year, but the leaves are yellow.
Orange, it could be a beam of light.
Well, also same thing. Leaves turn orange.
Yeah.
So, but yellow, they will never turn blue.
You just said that. Green is a stupid color for a disc golf basket.
I don't know why Prodigy
that
was
is
thinking.
Dumb.
That was so dumb.
It's like you might as well just paint the entire basket brown.
I think they thought it was going to be like day glow, and then they realized it wasn't. It was just leaf green. And then they were like, let's just run it.
Yeah.
We got the paint.
We got the paint.
Anyways, that's
blue. The answer is blue.
Let us know your
grip lock blue.
Let us know in the comments what you think the basket should be, and any other responses to what we mentioned. And let us know if you enjoyed some of the new segments we tried out. We're gonna have a preview show this week for Ledgestone. Pretty big deal. But other than that, we'll see you next time.